Hello, survivors. My name is Kevin Songer, and I live in Tallahassee, Florida. And I am a dissection survivor also. So I'll tell you a little bit about my story and how it's progressing. And I would love to hear feedback from you and questions you have. So it was 2011 on Thanksgiving when I dissected. And I was home alone, drove myself to the hospital, and unfortunately, I parked at the wrong end of the parking lot, really far away from the ER. So I was struggling to make it to the ER just walking. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I kept wanting to sit down. And I told myself, if I sit down, I might not get back up. uh, it's funny now, but it wasn't back then. So I walked into the ER room, and this was in Jacksonville, Florida. And the hospital was Memorial Hospital on University Boulevard there. It's kind of a very urban hospital. And I told the nurse that I thought I was having a heart attack. So she said I was white as a sheet. And I put my head on the table, and then she called the doctor real quick. And I remember being wheeled into the CT room for my CT scan. And next thing I remember, the tech was hollering. He said, "Oh my God." And I figured, uh-oh. So he came out and he said, "Oh man, your aorta is really messed up." And at that time, even though I was a biology major in college, I had really forgotten a lot about the anatomy and physiology and wasn't really keyed into the aorta. So I said, "Can the doctor fix it?" And the tech said, "I'm sure he can." So um, they called my wife, and she was out of town with the kids visiting her parents, and she came up to the hospital. And the doctor, the cardiothoracic surgeon, was a really young doctor, and he was just on call for the ER. And I think it was his first dissection, so he was all pumped up about it and gave me a St. Jude mechanical valve and a graft, uh, a sending graft. Now it was about 13-hour operation. Now my descending is still dissected everywhere, down into my legs, um, into my abdomen, up here, up there, everywhere. So we've medically managed that. And I thank nature and Qigong also for my health today. But so 2 weeks after I got home, I noticed that there is this big red pussy lump forming on my chest. And I'm like, I don't think this is right. And so Judy took me to the cardiothoracic surgeon's office there, and the physician's assistant was on call. And he looked at me and he put me on the examination table and grabbed his scalpel, and without any kind of anesthesia or anything, he just cut it open and all his white pussy junk gushed out. Sorry about that. So ended up that I had endocarditis, and apparently there was some stuff left in after surgery, or I got an infection or something. They never really could tell. But I had to go back in for a second open heart, and they pressure washed my aorta and heart. The doctor said it was like a green slime growing on my heart, my aorta. And then I was on all kinds of antifungal and antibiotic drip for like 4 months after that, 24 hours a day. I even learned how to change out my drip myself, which is hard one-handed, but the pick line was right here. So it was slow recovery after that. Had to learn how to walk again, had to learn how to talk again. Still haven't figured out how to think again. Um, but I started spending a lot of time outdoors and in nature, and um, had to buy a bike because even though I felt like I could drive once in a while, after about 6 months to 9 months, the state of Florida, for some reason, thought that I was a risk and took my driver's license away. So for 3 years, I was without a driver's license, and I learned how to bike everywhere. I mean, I biked miles and miles and miles, but being in the outdoors and the fresh air, spending a lot of time in nature, um, doing my qigong exercises has really helped me heal. One of my hobbies is doing nature recording. So what I do is I have some professional Sony recorders. They're kind of small, and some really nice stereo microphones. And I'll rig it up in a waterproof bag, and then go way out in the forest or the swamps. I like to go to the National Wildlife Refuge down here, and I'll put my recorders out in the afternoon. I have a permit with the Department of Interior to do this because I'm posting all of my nature sounds on the web for people to use for research and whatnot. But then I'll let my recorders sit out overnight and then come back the next morning and retrieve the recorders, bring them home, upload the music in my studio, or the wildlife sounds, which is really music, nature music. I love listening to frogs. I'll play frogs at night, and I can just go to sleep. If ever I have a tinnitus episode or insomnia episode, all I have to do is listen to frogs and night birds, and before you know it, I'm snoring louder than the pig frog, which, by the way, the pig frog kind of sounds like a snore, but the gopher frog really does sound like a snore. So, bottom line is spending time in nature. Hiking and biking out in the swamps is challenging, to say the least. Getting a lot of fresh air, learning about native plants and wildflowers and the native tree species, and then learning all the different calls and languages of nature, as I say, from the wildlife and the forest animals. That has really dissolved the stress that I had from dissection. So I spend as much time outdoors as I can, and it's spending that time outdoors has made me realize that nature is so awesome and there's so much power and healing in the universe. And I can't even describe it. I do have pump head, so sometimes I struggle with concepts. And if you haven't heard of pump head, which I'm sure most of you have, it's when you're on the heart-lung bypass machine. Sometimes you get air bubbles in your blood, and you'll have um, small bubbles hit your brain. I guess it's kind of like a TIA or strokes or some kind of embolistic damage. And so sometimes I forget what I'm thinking about. But anyway, I'm rambling on right now. Um, I find a lot of comfort in our social media groups, all the work that Karen and Aortic Hope and Josh and all the others have done is just amazing. And it's so reassuring to be able to open my phone or my notebook and know that there are other people out there that are struggling and read about their challenges. And I've always gleaned information on how to deal with certain issues or challenges through Aortic Hope and some of the support groups. Um, as I said, when we were on the Thursday aortic meetup, um, if I had to do it over again and I could live life without a dissection, I'd still go through the dissection, because dissection life over the last 12 years has opened up so many doors for me and taught me so much. And I've made so many awesome friends and acquaintances. And I've been inspired every day by what I read. And my heart's been broken, but I've learned about grief and losing really good friends. Um, I was close to Steve G, like many of you were. And Steve and I would have coffee at Starbucks in Fort Myers when he was down in Fort Myers for a while back in 2014, 2015, I believe it was 2014. And I really got to know Steve well. And then I always loved reading Greg's comments and hearing Greg's wisdom. Greg was a great guy. And there's been so many people that we've lost, and my heart's been broken over. But on the same hand, they've left a legacy, and there's so many good survivors or survivors with good stories and uh, missions that they're following to help other people. So the aortic community, I think, is phenomenal. It's just great. The last 12 years has been a challenge, but every day I really love the concept of baby steps. At first, like I said, I couldn't walk to the mailbox or even to the bathroom. I had to be helped to the bathroom, as many of y'all, probably most of y'all. Um, but spending time in nature and doing qigong, here's a really good qigong practice you can do real easily. It's called hand spirals. There's so many spirals out in nature, and just moving your wrists and keeping your wrists going is a wonderful thing to do when you're sitting in a chair. People look at me kind of strange sometimes if I'm in the doctor's office, but I am strange. So Qigong is a fun and easy way to move your body, especially your upper body. And that's what I've been focusing on, because being disabled, initially, I would sit down and as I could walk again, I began exercising my lower body, but my upper body I kind of ignored. And I got to the point where even shooting a basketball was almost impossible, or lifting my hands over my head. So one thing that Qigong has taught me is to move my hands. And I love moving my hands above my head, out to the side. There's many different directions that you can move your hands. I keep going back to Qigong because it's very nature-based, and hopefully in January, I get a chance to share some basic Qigong for seniors or disabled, or anybody that wants to learn that's can do it sitting down. I think we'll start off sitting down and maybe start off with some uh, breathing, learning some breathing techniques. Now, those breathing techniques are phenomenal. I practice breathing that I've learned, the breathing techniques every day. And they have contributed so much to my stress and anxiety reduction. And I used to chest breathe, but now I do diaphragmatic breathing, or belly breathing, but not only belly breathing, but kidney breathing and breathing in your sides. And it's just amazing what this nature-based Qigong has done for me health-wise. So in 2020, as I'm going along this recovery path, I go in for my annual CT scan, and they say the CT report comes back, and I was reading through it, and it said that there is a dark spot on my left kidney. So I went to see my primary care about it, and she's like, your kidney's going to have to come out. I'm like, what? She said, yeah, go see a urologist. So I did, and apparently, um, we went back and looked at the old CT scans over the last 3 or 4 years, previous 3 or 4 years, and there was a cancerous growth growing on right underneath my adrenal on my left kidney. So it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I asked the urologist. I said, "Whoa, what if I don't? What if I just treat it medically? I mean, but with yeah, medically and not do it surgically." And he said, "Well, you probably won't last very long." So I decided to go ahead and have that removed. And because I had so much mesh, being a connective tissue challenged person, they always have to put mesh when they sew me back up. And even my rib cage is still unstable after 13 years. But so they couldn't go in the front to get my kidney, and they had to go in through the back. So they went in through the back and cut out half of my kidney. I went home the next day. The doctors had given me quite a few anticoagulants after I'd been off of anticoagulants for this surgery. And what happened was where the kidney was cut, it started bleeding. And I went to bed that night, got up the next morning, and fell on the floor. So I could feel like just a wash tub of blood in my belly. I'm like, oh my goodness. And Judy helped me into the car and took me to the hospital. And they had to, doctor said, what we're going to do is go in through your groin, and then we're going to shoot a bunch of little metal springs into your kidney to cause the blood to clot and stop the bleeding. But when they went in through my groin, they realized that I was dissected all up in there. And so they had to thread the, whatever you call that thing that they inside of you, catheter. They had to thread it around my dissection, and it was all convoluted. But they did eventually put a bunch of metal springs into my kidney, and it stopped bleeding. Thank goodness. So dissection life, I will tell anybody, is always an ongoing challenge. You never know what's going to happen. It's like who's going to knock on the door that day? What kind of pain are you going to have that day? The same thing. Or what is that strange pain we are experiencing? Um, and from time to time, we do have really serious issues. Um, but like I said, it's opened so many doors, and I've met so many wonderful people that I wouldn't trade it for anything. Um, my recommendation to anybody just starting out on this path is to not expect too much too quick, and rely on others for support, because so many people have been there, done that before us, and they know what we're dealing with and what we're going through. And make friends that you can relate to and you can talk to. Honestly, I love our caregivers, and I love our family members, but they don't have a clue what we're going through. And the people, the survivors in Aortic Hope and other support groups, they hear you, they see you, they know. And so even my doctors, I love my doctors. My doctors are so smart. They don't. A lot of them, unless they've been dissected, they can relate, but they can't really relate, just like our spouses and families. So lean heavily on aortic hope and your support groups, um, and help each other out. One thing I like to do is, um, like I said, my undergrad was in biology, but I also went to law school. I am no longer a member of the bar because, for a number of reasons, I love the law. I think the law is great, and I really enjoyed doing environmental law, but it's stressful, and I enjoy doing nature art and my field recording and my qigong and just um, I grow hemp also. We've got 5 acres here, and I'm a licensed hemp grower here in the state of Florida. So there's so many other things that are really truly fun. But going back to my law background, when I filed for disability in 2011, I knew what I wanted to do, and um, I got my compiled the paperwork, submitted it, and was approved in less than 30 days for Social Security disability. And since then, I have helped for free friends and other dissection survivors with their disability cases. It's always good to have an attorney. Most attorneys are great, uh, but I will say that you are, as a survivor, you know your story better than anybody, and only you can tell your story best. So I always encourage people to give it a shot themselves. Um, I would love to do a little video workshop on my experiences and what I did to facilitate my disability. I'll just throw out a few things. You have to have an impeccable administrative record of your medical records, a nice notebook of every medical record you can get, and it needs to be in date order and in a notebook and then scanned in also so it's searchable. And then tell your story in a good summary, introductory document. Um, read the Social Security Blue Book and know what the requirements are. And uh, I know people have problems, but I really think that for dissection survivors, disability is a must, and it should not be questioned. So that's in a nutshell me. You'll find me in the swamps most of the time, and with my recorders or doing qigong. We teach a Monday night class, and I'm excited about the 2024 Aortic Hope Qigong class. I really hope that you'll drop in and listen because I do think that there's some valuable, easy, easy health hacks that you can pick up. And God bless you all for the challenges you're faced with. I know because I've been there, done that, and plan to be around a long time. I know there's some dissection survivors that are 20, 30, 40 years out, and I have hope, but I don't fool myself. So I do try to live in the present moment. And Joshua gave me a key sentence to say when I was done, but because, because of the pump hit, I've totally forgot. I think it's, and there you have it, or uh, if there's any questions. So I'll give you thumbs up and just say happy holidays. I love all of you guys. And thank you for listening.
There you go. That's the sentence. All right. I've got some questions for you, and Velda wanted to jump in and say hello there. Great story. Let's see here. Um, So 12 years ago was your initial dissection, and then how long was it between that first dissection and that follow-up?
It was 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, okay, so open heart surgery, 2 to 3 weeks, back to back. And according to my notes here, you did 4 months of keeping it clean after
Yes,
that
on the
second surgery.
24/7 IV. They had drip antibiotics and drip antifungals
Yeah.
and all kind of nasty stuff going in there. Even the antibiotics that are supposed to cause more dissection, which is I think the diflucan.
Okay.
So that I was on that too.
Okay. So at that point, when you finally get off of the antifungal, how often would you be changing your prescriptions?
After 4 months of drip antibiotic, I was off antibiotics. They gave me an all clear
Hmm.
as to the infection. So it's just hopefully you're done. But if you start having green pus around your heart again, then come back.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay. So that's 100. Yeah, that had to be pretty challenging. So you're walking around with that thing just kind of hanging out of your arm for 4 months, just like taped.
That's
Wow.
right.
And you like the idea of the baby steps, which is something that we like. We can only recommend everyone in the community. Like you know, you said don't expect too much out of yourself, and I think that's a big thing. As I monitor the support groups, when we have newly dissected people, we're always like, listen, you're not going to be strong very soon, and don't be, like, have the kind of patience you would have for somebody else. Like if you were taking care of somebody else, you would say things like, whoa, I'll get that. Hey, just relax. But you won't do that for yourself. And everybody is so quick to try to do things. And we have stories of people that, like, just a few weeks after open heart surgery, dissection repair, will walk up a mountain like Chef Rob. Yeah, and they'll just do crazy things, and it's like, no, no, just back down and relax a little bit. Um,
Exactly. You're right, John.
when you first started getting back into going out and getting into nature, like, were you taking like 15-minute walks and then slowly getting longer? Like, what was that process like for you?
Good question. Mostly I would go out to the park, have my wife drive me to the park, and sit under a tree.
Okay.
Just get a lot of vitamin D and fresh air. That the vitamin D and fresh air really helped clear my anxiety and depression and feeling of hopelessness. So what I would do is, as I would sit under the tree, look at the tree and look at the sky and the clouds. I mean, we all as kids would lay on the ground and look up at clouds. You look up in the sky and it makes you realize how expansive the universe that we live in is, and that um, is so grand and so majestic, and there's so much power in it. And it made me feel so much better than when I was laying in my bed or my recliner and I felt closed in. But being outdoors and seeing the bugs crawl and the kids play and hearing the birds sing, there's so much healing power in nature.
I can agree with
So
that.
I would sit a lot at first, and then I would get up and start walking. Like I said, at first it was maybe a couple of steps, and then 100 steps a couple months later, and you just add a step or two every day, or ride your bike a little bit further every day. And um, before you know it, our bodies adapt. They are amazing healing machines. I mean, oh God,
How long until you got on the bike?
I'd say probably 9 months
Okay.
to a year.
Okay. And how long would you say you were or how far would you say you were walking before you transitioned to the bike by then?
Uh, well, um, I, I would add more and more steps, but at 9 months, probably I was walking maybe 3 or 4 thousand steps a day. Eventually, I got up to where I did 10,000 steps a day for an entire year. And that was one of my goals on January 1st is this upcoming year, I'm going to walk 10,000 steps every day. And that was the greatest thing in the world. I did it all out in nature, um, except when the weather was inclement. I would go inside the mall or uh, a big building, but every day I did 10,000 steps. And uh, that really boosted my healing process.
I like that. Were you using a kind of a step monitor, like a watch or smartwatch or something?
Um, I was using my iPhone for a while, but I became paranoid that Apple was tracking all of my personal information. So I think that's a derivative of the pump head issues. So I went to a small, just non-electronic step counter, keep it in my
Nice,
pocket.
nice. Okay.
But I'm back on Google now. Now I have a Google Watch that monitors my whatever I do and whatever I say. Hello, Google.
Hello, Google. I love it. All right, so about a year of walking before you got onto the bike. Um, how long from that point are you getting out into the nature and starting your nature videos?
Uh, Almost immediately.
Oh yeah,
I would start. Yeah, I would start just doing audio and video in the park, and then maybe riding a little bit further because I wanted to get away from the urban traffic noise and the human-based anthropogenic noise. Uh, so I'd move out further into the forest or the swamps, and then further and further and further. And it's amazing how much subliminal traffic and city noise there is. And I really believe that has a negative impact on our healing because I know that it increases my blood pressure. But when I go out in the swamps where I don't hear the urban noise, and we don't recognize it because those of us that live in the city hear it every day. But when you're out in the swamps, there's such a peaceful feeling that fills your body, and you can feel it almost. The wildlife and nature sounds, I call it the languages of nature, they come in and sing healing songs to you. So um, I would go out each day as I progressed in health further and further into the wilderness to do more nature and wildlife recording. And I got some of the most interesting sounds. I've learned so much, but that's another story.
yeah, it is. We should come back and talk about that another time. What kind of prescriptions do they have you on right now? Do you have like a slew of meds that you're on?
You know, as I analyze that, Joshua, I find it very intriguing because I'm still pretty much on everything that I was put on the day that I left the hospital. I again, as dissection survivors, sometimes we are an anomaly to the doctors, and they most of them, unless you're at like a major research hospital like Cleveland Clinic or Mayo or out in Texas, the doctors only have what the textbooks recommend. So I was put on 200 milligrams of metoprolol, beta blocker, the metoprolol um, uh, tartrate, which is not the extended release. And I was put on losartan, which I was changed later to telmisartan, and warfarin, which has been a huge challenge. Simvastatin, I'm still on simvastatin, and a PPI for stomach acid. So I've had to cut back from the 200 milligrams of metoprolol because it turned me into a zombie. And kind of worked with my doctors at Mayo Clinic to wean it down to about 25 milligrams in the morning and 25 milligrams at night. But they've given me leeway to adjust that as I feel my heart rate either being way too slow because it's too much in my body, or speeding up way too fast, which is because I don't have enough in there. So I've kind of learned to titrate the metoprolol um, myself. Warfarin's been the biggest challenge for me, and I've had a couple of severe bleeding episodes. Last about 4 months ago, I took my INR. I have a home INR test kit, and my INR was 8.5, and I started. I took it because I started urinating blood. So I normally take my INR once every 2 weeks, but for some reason it got way out of whack. I don't know why. But anyway, I did go to the hospital, and um, they gave me some vitamin K, and I got that back down. So warfarin's been a challenge. Metoprolol, the beta blocker, and the warfarin have been the biggest challenge. But I do blame my generic prescriptions probably for my renal cell carcinoma on my kidney.
Mm.
I've read a lot of articles that say those generic drugs coming from outside of the United States don't really have the best quality, and I'll never know, but I have a sneaky suspicion that may have caused that.
I see. Okay. Um, so in 2020, you get your annual CT scan. You see the dark spot on your kidney. Help me with the math. This is how long after your dissection?
That would have been 9 years.
9 years after dissection. Okay. That had to be pretty challenging just to get through again. I wasn't expecting that part of the story.
Well, it's like, oh crap, but here we go again. It's like we've overcome so much that you know it might it's not something you want to do, but hey, we're going to do it. We're going to get through it. We're going to move on. And I always look at all of these opportunities as doors opening, opportunity to help others in the same situation, opportunity to learn, opportunity to improve our health, change our lifestyle, drink more water, just you know, I think attitude is a huge part of survivor life.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's funny when I take some stories from like New Zealand or Australia, they have a different way of looking at an aortic dissection episode, and they're just like, I just had a bad day, and I find that attitude to be so interesting that I had a bad day, and that bad day was an aortic dissection repair and an emergency surgery. Like
Right.
I just had a bad day, and I'm like, what? And so one of the things that I like that you're kind of going through here is like how long it takes for this you just to get back on your feet, like a year, right? Um, and
Um,
and
don't ever be in a hurry. You can't. If you're in a hurry, you're going to end up hurting yourself mentally and physically. You just have to do baby steps. Just make one small positive gain every day, no matter how small it is. If it's okay, today I did 10 belly breaths instead of 9 belly breaths. That is amazing. That's awesome. And everything adds up. It's amazing over time. Everything does add up. So don't be in a hurry. Don't push yourself. Don't expect that it's overnight.
yeah, yeah. Um, so you bring up some of the isolation that you felt post surgery because again, you're going to talk to family members, spouse, caregivers, doctors. They don't quite know the journey. So how long would it be until you found some of the other support groups post surgery?
Now, that is like a long time ago. So I'd be thinking, well, first thing I did was go to Dr. Google and say, hey, Dr. Google, tell me about this aortic dissection. I want to know how quick I can heal. That was my first search. I remember that was my first search. How do I heal from aortic dissection? Because I had no clue. And back then, there weren't a whole lot of Facebook aortic dissection groups. There were a few people just starting to push out social media support platforms. So I just kind of hooked on and listened and learned from people. A lot of those people have passed on now, but others have picked up in their place.
Yeah, yeah, it really is a relay race. That's what it feels like. Um, so you talk about having tinnitus or getting a bout of insomnia. And one of the things that I like to explore with the patients is like how do you like other than being outside and the regular walking, like how do you explain what that anxiety is that you get? Like how does it manifest for you? Anxiety when it comes to like no two dissections are the same. That's the first thing. Some people will experience post-traumatic stress in a way where they can like with Karen, she smelled rubbing alcohol and that would be a trigger for her, right? And some people like they hear beeping in the hospitals when they're going for their CT scans or a helicopter goes by or an ambulance drives by and they can feel like a acute anxiety on set immediately. How did you have it? How did you recognize that anxiety?
Good question. So um, my anxiety was mostly occurring at night when I went to bed. I was fine as long as I was up, moving around, doing things. I felt like I was in control then, accomplishing things. And but when I went to sleep, it was I have to let go now and just trust that I'm going to wake up. So my dissection occurred at night, and I always associate subconsciously, I think, dissection at night. So nighttime has been rough for me, uh, always, and even to this day. I wonder when I go to bed, unless I'm extremely tired, am I going to wake up? And that that form of PTSD has spurred me on to make a lot of improvements in my life, like get my business in order, all of my wills and um, uh, medical papers in order, everything in order. In the event that I were to pass, I want it to be easy on my family. Not that it's going to be easy. I want it to be easier on my family.
Yeah, yeah.
So, have a to-do list. This is a list of my passwords. um, this is who I want to have what,
Mm,
etc. So the PTSD has also opened many doors for me. But to answer your question, I would say when it gets dark at night, I'm like, here we go again.
okay. You mentioned Greg. I got the pleasure of working with Greg for a year right up until he passed a couple years ago. And like his dissection happens in the shower. And I remember him talking about like, sometimes I get in the shower and he's like, I start the shower up and I just look at the water. I don't even get in it. I just look at it happening. And that's a weird trigger to have.
It
uh,
is. I did have the shower trigger at first because one of the first memories I have in the hospital was the nurses helping me to the shower, and it was very uncomfortable doing the shower right there in the hall. Um, and so for a long time, I hated shower, but now I love shower because I love the hot water, and I like to do meridian tracing, my qigong meridian tracing, using the shower head to trace my pericardium meridian and my heart meridian and all the different uh, uh, traditional Chinese medicine meridians in the shower. I'll even do some calisthenics, and I know you got to be careful in the shower because you could fall, but I do have some handles in there, and I'll work the tendons and fascia in my back of my legs while the hot water's running over it. and do a lot of body massage in the shower. So I've gone from hating the shower from that hospital experience now to actually looking forward to the shower.
Okay. I want to say hi to Christina. She jumped into the chat. She says, a lot of meds interfere with my INR. Latest was my blood getting too thick. I think one of my herbal over the counter caused it. And she also says that she's on warfarin too since 2014.
Yes, there are a lot of over the counter and herbal. There's foods, medication, herbs. A lot of things can interfere with your INR, and the way that that usually happens, I've found, is that it takes precedence in your liver metabolism processes. So your liver decides, okay, I'm going to devote most of my time metabolizing the rosemary extract that you took or the turmeric. Turmeric is especially bad for that. Turmeric will really cause my INR to go sky high really quick because my liver shuts down the metabolism of warfarin and decides I'm just going to stick with metabolizing turmeric. So, yes, there are many medications that will leapfrog the metabolism of warfarin and take precedence in your liver. And therefore, it leaves more warfarin circulating in your body, and your INR slowly creeps up higher and higher. So, what I do to what I've done for years now, and it's a huge help in managing that, is to keep a very detailed food and herbal medicine and medication diary every day. What I ingest, what I put into my body, and after a while, you can really see trends. Whereas if it's not written down on a paper, I wouldn't notice all these trends. But once it's on paper, it's like, oh, yeah, my INR was sky high this time period, but these were the exact foods or medications that I was taking. So, yes, I would tell Christina that warfarin is tricky.
Yeah, warfarin is tricky. Um, you noted that it took you a little while to get your hands over your head. Like what is a little while? What is that?
Oh, a couple years probably
Okay.
after dissection.
Yeah.
Um, I slowly, compared to what I can do now,
Hmm.
um, I I did not pay attention to my upper body after dissection for a good long while, and yeah, I really started going downhill. I mean, I could still work and do things, but um, the pain in the shoulders and actually the motion, how much motion I could have, the flexibility greatly decreased very quickly. So my my slogan is motion is lotion, and the more you move, the more. And this is very important for us as dissection survivors as we age. If we were to fall, we want to be able to get up off the floor. If uh, we find ourselves in a situation where we need upper body strength, we've really got our flexibility. We've got to have it. So yes, I failed on that aspect for the first couple of years, but now I realize just how important upper body flexibility, arm flexibility, posture, spine is. So, um,
I like it. I like it. I mean, that concludes all of my questions. I like that we explored the anxiety at nighttime, and that's, that's interesting. Triggers for the shower, that's also very interesting. Some of the people that I've talked to, they say things like, I've never felt so vulnerable. Like any teenage kid could just come rolling over and just take me out, and that's a, an interesting trigger that gets manifested as they get post dissection repair out back out into the wild, and you're just like, I'm gonna go to the nature, not the streets.
or you don't have to be a roadblock as some teenager comes up and tries to push you over. You don't
Yeah,
have to be. "Arr." You, what I've found is work smarter, work easier and smarter, and you can get the same job done.
Yeah, yeah, right on. Right on. All right, so I mean that's the like I said, that's all the questions I have. Do you have any lasting recommendations for the community?
No, just enjoy life and live in the moment. This is life is not a dress rehearsal. This is what it is. So go out and do what you feel best at doing, help others, and happy holidays.
All right, thank you so much, Kevin.
All right, Joshua, talk to you later.
Yep.
Bye bye.
Oh, don't hang up.